In this video, we're going to look at setting up a career in Train Sim World 2. This should be of interest to any of you who like North American freight and switching operations. What I'll do is I'll change my profile and create a new profile specific to a career. And that way, anything I do in this profile would be saved, and then you can come back to the place you left off. And in other words, what you want to do in setting it up like this is you're only going to be using this for a particular route. And when you do that, then you can have a career with that route. And as long as you don't go change routes within this profile, then you don't end up building points and that kind of thing, but you can keep working on a continuous career. And I'll show you what I want thinking of doing here is just give the profile whatever name. I like to use the route name. In this case, I'm using Oakville, which is the route. It's a Canadian route actually, and I'm going to show you here. I think it's the best one available for this kind of a thing. And then, in this case, say Oakville career. And what I would do is set up the profile first and then go and select that route. And by doing so, from now on, I'm always going to be going into the same route. And when I come back after closing out and getting back in again, I could just say continue with my previous save, and it will take me into this career mode. And that's not you can still keep your other profiles in a sense. That would be fine if you want to go use the other profiles for playing the other routes and stuff. But then whenever you go into this profile, you go into your career mode. And I love this Oakville route. It is premium for setting up this way because it allows you to do things that you can't do even when you create your own scenarios with the scenario planner. Your own scenarios with the scenario planner only allows you to use one engine as the where you can sit down and operate and as a pilot. But in this free roam scenario in the Oakville route. Now, of course, the Oakville route has several scenarios, but one of them is called the Hamilton Explorer, and that one is a free roam, and that's the one I'm talking about, and that's the one I'm setting up my career in. And it's got a lot of engines and a lot of cars out there in the yard, which is unusual for Train Sim World. Usually you get a route and you look at that route. I'm turning my engine on and doing all the typical things that hopefully most of you know about to get your engine running. But a lot of the routes that we have, you look through the yards and they look empty. And this one you'll see has a bunch of switching areas, a bunch of yards, and lots of cars. Lots of cars to switch around with. So let's set up this engine. But like I said, I can get out of this engine and get in another one and sit down and run any of the engines in this route. You're free to roam and free to jump in and out of any of the engines. And you can't do that with the scenario planner. You're limited to the one engine you set up as pilot. So that's one of the things that makes this particular route, this Canadian Oakville route, premium for for this kind of use. And we got two different types of engines here. I think it's the Jeep 38, I believe, and the 9. And unfortunately, the 9 isn't, as far as I can tell, isn't available to be used with the rail driver hardware if you have a rail driver. But look at this. All of these that we're looking at in this section on the map is all manual switching. Nothing's stopping you from going anywhere on this map. There's no red signals or anything. But look, you see where when you look down on the map, you can see there's plenty of cars already placed out with this Hamilton Explorer. It's wonderful. Lots of cars placed all over this map. Not only here, but down in the lower section of what I'll be using as what am I trying to say? Interchange is what I was thinking of. Interchange yard, but then we have other yards going along, and it's not like it's miles and miles. I think we only got like 8 to 10 kilometers here, maybe 12 when you go into the different spurs. But look, all of them got cars in there, and look at all of these spurs branching into different points of, and there's a red signal there. So there's your limitation. You can't get past that. But you have all of this in the map that you can play with, and not only the different yards, but all the different industries and all the different branches. What I was saying, branch into different buildings and industries and places to drop cars off. And here's the other side of your limitation. But you can get down here, because you can make that bend, come all the way down here, and this is what we're going to do today. We're going to actually go from the upper side down to this lower interchange area, and you don't get a red signal until you go way out to this point. It's enough room to move a reasonable size train, so you can get it out of an interchange area and then up into the rest of the route, where you can drop off cars into the different industries. Plenty of places there. So I love this. I really do. It's what I plan to do now is actually take you through a career. Not today. I'm just going to take you down into this interchange area and then show you a little bit of stuff, a little bit around why I like this so much. But in future videos, maybe if I have time to do future videos, we'll set up and keep working a career with one engine and maybe some of the other engines too, and just keep moving along and progressing in time, like you would any other game, like European Truck Simulator, American Truck Simulator, Fernbus, or any of these other games that have career modes where you can stop and at a point and get back in and continue on where you left off. And that's one of the limitations, I think, in Train Sim World 2 that is troublesome to me. But you can do it with this Hamilton Explorer, and that's what I want to show you today. And we began by setting up our own profile specific for this career. So maybe I'll slow down here and let you catch my breath and let you catch up with all that I'm talking about. But there are some little things I want to show you as we go along. Some mysterious stuff that goes with this route. But what a phenomenal route it is. You notice we in the yards there's lots of cars. We showed you that on the map, and as we drive by you'll see what cars they are. On the map you can't tell what kind of cars they are, but we'll be driving by and we can see there's a good mix. I mean, there's open hoppers, closed hoppers, there's tank cars, of course. There's a mix of some box cars, not many, but some, and so there's a good mix of cars. There's the center beam cars. So we're heading into the yard that's below on the map, and that one I refer to as the interchange track, because what do I mean by interchange? I mean that's an area where, and I don't know if this is true in real life for this particular route, but the way I look at it in my imagination is that's the area where trains can come in from different areas of the world, or not really the world. I mean other places outside of Oakville, and they could even be CSX or other lines besides the Canadian line, and they can drop off their cars here and leave the local, Canadian local engines to handle the cars that came in from the outside. So an interchange section is anywhere where is a yard where different lines can come in. Where I live in Florida, and up in Jacksonville, Florida, there's like 4 different lines. There's the Norfolk Southern that comes into a yard there. There's CSX comes into there. Florida East Coast comes in and out of there, and Seaboard Systems at one time, I think now they, I'm trying to think of all the different lines, but some of them get bought out by others. But what I'm saying is, even today, all those different, and sometimes Canadian National comes down into that yard. It can drop cars off, and then the different lines can pick up and continue on with that commercial business and moving freight. What you're seeing here this is a mysterious track. If you go over to this rusted area, you'll bang into it, and and you can't go down that track. And so you can get on the left. In other words, if you look here, you don't even see it on the map. It's a hidden track, and here, even though it exists, these two here exist, you can't actually roll your cars and your engines past that area. Yeah, so this is the hidden scenic track that it's funny. It's there as part of the scenery, but it's unusable rail. But the good news is you do have to turn that switch to head down to the lower yard, even though it's by default goes into the hidden rail that will, if you bang into it, your whole engine will lurch, and the locomotive will kind of jump, and then you get into the black screen of back to the main menu. But here we are, so we can get to the lower yard here. It's funny because in a lot of the other scenarios, and I think on most of the timetables, you can't get from the upper yards down into the lower yard. But in this free roam scenario, the Oakville Explorer, you can, which opens up a whole slew of more trackage and not just rail, but all those cars down there, which in my gameplay I look at as an interchange. So we're heading down there now, and we're gonna have to. We got a choice here because we got a fork in the road. We can come into that yard from one side or the other, and I want to come in from the. I guess it's the west side. Yeah, I imagine it's the west side. If we are indeed facing south, I'd have to look in Google Maps to see what the case is, but. In my mind, we're facing south right now, so we'll be heading west. But if you head down the other way, you'll run into this red signal, which means you can sneak down there with a locomotive or two and approach the yard from that side, but you can't really get any train cars out of there. So you can come this way and move your train cars on this route, on this leg. So that's what we'll do. We'll make the turn here, and as you may have noticed, I didn't want this video to go an hour and a half, so I'm editing out chunks of time to keep it within 35 minutes or 40 minutes or so. Yeah, and so here look, we got center beam cars, we got some box cars, some hoppers, open as well as closed hoppers. So more route to enjoy. You know, I did a few years ago. I did a video on a New York City route. Oh gosh, I can't remember the name of that one. But yeah, you can run freight through it, and you go over Hell Gates Bridge and that. And you looked at whenever in the city, you look down on the highway like that. There was no traffic at all. So I'm so pleased with this route. You know, you have traffic, and now this, of course, is Train Sim World 2, and the other route with New York City. Can't remember what's the name of that one. Maybe it'll come to me later. Whenever you looked at the city blocks, there was nothing that looked like the end of the world or something. It was completely dead. Even talk about it in there too, but that route is in Train Sim World. You know, previous to Train Sim World 2. I went back not too long ago, just like a week ago. I went back to run Train Sim World, because I like that route. It's kind of close to what here we have in Oakville. We do have a route in New York City where you can move freight to a lot of different industries and drop cars off and stuff. It's not quite as nice as this one, but it's there. So I went back to play it and just to see if they had updated the traffic at all. You know, where you have more cars and stuff. But nope, no, nothing's changed. But it's still a good route. I mean, it's one of the reasons why I still keep Train Sim World in my on my computer and running, so I can. And that's the Northeast Corridor. I think is there's a passenger route to the Northeast Corridor, and I can't remember if the freight part was part of that one. But I also like the Northeast Corridor for for the New York City passenger trains. So. I do go use Train Sim World, the original, on occasion. But that was one of the things that didn't get ported over when they went to Train Sim World 2. Most of the other stuff did. Oakville, I was so pleased. I mean, in my delight, Oakville did get ported over from Train Sim World into Train Sim World 2. And gosh, that's great that it is. I don't know. Eventually, they may offer the Northeast Corridor to Train Sim World 2, as a downloadable content. Kind of a shame if you have to go pay for it again. But I wouldn't be surprised if they offered it back up. Kind of like Sherman Hill. Now, Sherman Hill, I don't think was part of Train Sim World, but it was part of Train Simulator. And and so they did end up taking that over to Train Sim World too. And I just recently published a video on Sherman Hill, which I like a lot. But you can't do the free roam type of things that we're doing here. At least you don't have. You can only play around in the yard, switching cars in the Cheyenne yard, actually. And then if you do your own scenario planner, which I did, and made my own scenario, I set it up where I could kind of do a free roam on the opposing yard. Was the name of that town. But this Oakville, I mean, it's outstanding. So what I'm going to do here today is bring these two engines down here and drop one of the engines off, and then make I guess it's the Jeep 9 as my career engine that I spend most of my time with. And I definitely will be getting in some of the other engines and driving around for particular tasks, but I like to spend a lot of time with one particular engine that I can call my own. And actually this is the one here. And eventually, as I run enough jobs, I'll have to refuel it, and maybe days will go by. The sad part is there's no place where you can go and spend the night, and this is something that Dovetail Games can learn from the other truck simulator or bus simulator, the other simulations out there. Their gameplay with American Truck Simulator or European Truck Simulator. When you're done doing a particular task, you can find a hotel, pull into the hotel, and or you can find the rest area and select 6 hours or do it twice and knock off 12 hours and then continue on in the next day. There's no spot you can do that, and Fernbus does the same thing. Though this is something too. Fernbus, they have a downloadable content, and Dovetail Games, I guess, in the sense that if they want to look at it from a money aspect, they can do what Fernbus did, and they can make a downloadable content that has a career mode to it, where you can go, into the bus depot. In Fernbus, you go into the bus depot, and then you go into your office, and then you can, let time go by, and I can't remember if it's 6 hours or 12 hours, and then the next day you continue your career. You go in the office, and there's a number of different things you can do. You can do a save, or you can let time go by, or you continue whatever. Manage your money, whatever you want to do. So they ought to look at that. Dovetail Games ought to look at what Fernbus has done with their career mode is like a sports team, a soccer team, and you select your team, you select your country, and you drive that team around for a season. So that season ends up being your career, and you go from city to city to city. And so in a similar manner, I don't see why you couldn't do the same sort of thing here in Train Sim World 2. So what I'm doing is I'm setting up this engine. Shutting down this one. Which one am I in now? I got into talking and yeah. This is the one I want. So yeah, I shut down the other engine. I'm setting this one up to be my engine of choice. So once again, this is what's wonderful about this particular scenario, the Hamilton Explorer. And I think, I'm sorry if I called it the Oakville Explorer. It's the Hamilton Explorer because you can jump in any of the engines and locos you want. And anyway, got this one all set up to be my engine of choice. Looking at my gauges, waiting for the air brakes to get up to 90 psi. Give it a little bit of power. You can see on the gauge where the amp's going up in green, and we're off. Release the brakes, of course, and we're on our way. And we just broke away from the other locomotive. And for a lot of the jobs we want to do around the yards and switching and doing local deliveries, we just need the one engine. If you prefer to have two, you certainly could do it that way, because you're going to go back and forth a lot. It's kind of nice to when you go the other direction, not have to get on a Y or something to turn around. You can just switch locomotives, and you're facing forward again. But this Jeep 9, which is kind of nice about this one, is that it's not that big of an engine, so you can go long nose forward in a sense. Even though it's set up for short nose forward, it's no big deal to go the other direction, long nose forward. My understanding was one of the railroad lines actually purchased. I don't know if it was these or the 7s or the 9s, but they purchased them with them being set up long nose forward, specifically for switching. just like a switcher would be. And then when they, as a road switcher, and that's how I look at this as in a sense, a road switcher, where you're switching around the yards, of course, and but then when you want to go do your local deliveries, you're going down the branch line. When I say set up, so what I mean by that is, if this one's set up for the short nose forward, but the ones that are set up for long nose forward would have the controls on the other side, on the left side instead of the right side, in a sense. So you would be, when you're looking long way down the long nose, the controls would be on the on the right side. Here, I like to do most of my switching and stuff as a conductor, and then operate the, calling the plays as a conductor to the engineer. So I'm actually playing a crew of two. Right now, I'm just doing everything by myself. And if I wanted to fuel up, of course, this is one of the things I like about this simulation. You can get the fuel cap off. You can go to a fuel pump and put fuel in. This gauge here is a little bit dark. You probably can't see it, but it's about it's better than 3/4 full, I think, at the moment. It's actually easier to see when you're not on foot. When you go into using the 8 key and you go into fly around mode, you can fly down and look at the gauge quite easily. So now that we're in the cab, you see that all the controls are on the right side of this cab, on the short end. And so if it was set up where the whole thing was on the other side, it would be a long nose forward setup. But like I said, I will be using this hopefully in oncoming videos, in future videos, using this thing as a road switcher, and there'll be times where I'm running down the rail long nose forward. The one thing about this particular locomotive is it is the speedometer is it's lit up, but it has these little dots that show you where you are in speed. You kind of have to get used to that. So the 4130, that's going to be my locomotive. That's my career locomotive now. Like I said, I'll probably jump out of this into other locomotives for some of my future videos, but I hope to be using this quite a bit and see how things pan out. I imagine you could go several days with this locomotive before you use too much fuel up, to be honest with you. And I don't know how I'm going to deal with overnight situations. I know a lot of railroads do a lot of the yard switching at night, and a lot of runs during the night hours. But be honest with you, in gameplay, I don't enjoy running at night. I don't know, it's just me. But there's no reason why you couldn't continue to run all night and into the next morning. Unfortunately, with any scenario, even these free roam scenarios, you can't change the weather. At least not that I know how to do. You can't change the weather or what day of the year it is. All right, we're all hooked up. So I wanted to approach this string of trains from this side because I want to run it up instead of backing it up. I'm going to only have to back it up out of the yard, and then I can run it back around the curve on up into the other area of the this branch line. Typically, once you get all hooked up, you make sure all the manual brakes are released and the air pressure gets up to 90, and none of that's everything is ready to go. It looks like. And I am using the 8. Well, no, I'm using the 3 key. The 3 key attaches you to a point on the train, and so I can actually kind of fly down here and where my conductors walk down to the other end, because this is going to be a backup operation, and so I need eyes on the rail. So even though I just said I was running this by myself, at this point we got cars behind me. I really need to have a crew member. With the conductor riding the rail and calling the shots and really be in charge of the train. I do use the HUD as my conductor's radio. That's the way I like to look at it. And as a conductor, I can turn the turnouts and switch the rail. And now I can get in the cab with the engineer and enjoy the ride. I'm back up around the curve and bring this string of cars up to the yard above. The yard, neither this yard or the one above it is Hamilton Yard. Hamilton Yard is actually like west of all this, and outside the scope of the free roam, unfortunately. It would be nice if you could get into Hamilton Yard. You could set up with the scenario planner, which I tried to do, and actually it works, or where your destination is beyond the Hamilton Yard, and that way you can do all this stuff down here and then eventually take it into Hamilton Yard. The only problem with all that is you don't have anywhere near the selection of cars available. You're limited to the number of engines that you can do as a service, and tell those services to bring those cars into this yard or that yard. And there's a limitation. It doesn't, it never gets anywhere close to the number of cars that's in the Hamilton Explorer to begin with. So it's almost like you can do it, but you don't win out. This scenario is the winner, and I love it because there's things about it I wish I hadn't found. Most of the center beam cars, or all of the center beam cars, are empty. I wish there was some loaded ones. Maybe there is. Maybe I just didn't run into them yet. But it looks like they populated this whole Hamilton Explorer with empty center beam cars. At least the tank cars, if they're empty, you can take them over to the thing and load them up. I loved Train Simulator before Train Sim World came out, and it's probably still true. You can load cars with a key command. Take them through a loader. So here we are. I kind of skipped the run around the curve and just brought the train right up here to finish up the day. Glad you were with me, and we'll catch you next time.